There are way too many attachments in Delta Force that favor control over stability, yet only a handful of attachments that favor stability over control. This imbalance sort of implies that control is a more valuable and desired attribute than stability is when building weapons in Delta Force, which is the most important, control or stability. In today's video, we're going to get to the bottom of it, nerd out a little bit, do some testing, look at some numbers, and try to determine what is more valuable. If you guys enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I do variety FPS content on my channel. 98% of you guys that are watching my content are not subscribed. Anyways, let's get into the video, guys. For control, it says the higher the control, the less noticeable the weapon's recoil when fired. And this is called the recoil pattern, the spray pattern. It's essentially shown right here through data points. If you guys want to better understand this, check out the video at the top of the screen after this one. It's how to interpret and read this data and translate it into mechanical aiming skill to make any weapon have zero recoil. Stability, it says the higher the stability, the less the weapon shakes during continuous fire. The less breathing affects aiming and the less it moves when hit. So this is essentially visual recoil. Each game has visual recoil differently. Some games, even the UI or heads-up display elements move when you shoot, but in Delta Force, it's essentially the player model, so the gun itself will be shaky. You'll notice it in the frame of your optic. It's unnecessary movement when things should be still, and it just kind of adds in your peripheral vision what feels like recoil, but it's actually just visual movement. Also, bullet punch is a thing, so you can have flinch reaction multipliers, idle sway, so when you're breathing, your character does a figure 8 or an infinity symbol. It's not ideal because holding an angle, you want to be dead still, ideally, because that way when they peek into your angle or reticle, you just boom. Easy kill. But if you're swaying and your reticle's off where you want it to be due to that idle sway, then you have to make a micro adjustment or flick back to where you really want it to be. So we're going to break it down further by doing some side-by-side testing. Let's get into that. I made 2 builds for the M4. The first one's going to be focused for control, and it's called max control. And the other one's going to be focused on stability, and it's called max stability. These will be in the description. So if you guys want to try out these in the range on your computer, which I highly recommend, I tried to make the 2 builds as even as possible. So stability, it focuses stability, which is at 86. Control, it focuses control, so it's at 82. There's a difference of 4, but that's pretty close. On the stability build, the opposite would be control. The control's at 52. On the control build, the stability is opposite and the stability is at 54. So it's a difference of 2 for the opposite on each build and a difference of 4 for the focus on each build. So overall, this is close enough for testing purposes. Each build has the Gabriel AR long barrel on there. Each build uses a 30 mag and each build uses the Cobra red dot. Now let's just get into testing the guns side by side and kind of taking note of different things. All right, guys, so let's start off with idle sway. So this is a stability stat, and as we can see, it's pretty minimal on this build. Not too noticeable. With the red dot, you can already look at that movement. Let's go ahead and throw on a 3x to have it be a little bit more noticeable. All right, so now we have the 3x on and we're going to be able to notice the idle sway a bit more. So that's the idle sway right there. Now let's get into spraying the gun. So here I am spraying the stability build. And all I'm doing is just pulling down on my mouse pad ever so slightly. I'm not trying to fully optimize the recoil control. And I'm gonna do this with both builds. Just pull down ever so slightly on each one and switch over to the control build now and see what feels better. Does control feel better or does stability feel better for spraying? So instantly I'm overwhelmed with that white flashing that occurs with basically any of the muzzles that aren't a flash hider. It's just disgusting in this game how much that white, it's a flashbang. Every single bullet is flashbanging yourself. So that's instantly distracting to me and I want to put on a flash hider right away. I see a lot more shakiness in the optic frame and in the reticle itself. It just feels like a blur effect is being added on. The recoil pattern itself, it I don't really, it doesn't feel any different, honestly, in terms of easiness to control compared to the stability build, but all I'm noticing is a lot more visual effects and craziness happening on my screen. I'm gonna be straight up honest, I prefer the max stability for just this little test right here. All right guys, and so what I want to get into right here, we have a 2-target setup, and I just want to practice doing some transfers between the two and getting some double kills, seeing how that feels, and just another way to test control or stability for a situation where you need to transfer. So to wrap things up after that testing, I just wanted to say, be aware this was a very specific instance of testing on non-moving targets in the firing range with the M4. So when you're in a real match, there's things like netcodes, ping, latency, you have different hardware, you're going against different players of skill levels, so it's never as simple as what I just tested, but this is just a generic guide to understand and get a better conceptual understanding of what the two attributes actually do. And so just from running the tests, the first one being the idle sway, of course, a build that focuses stability is going to have better idle sway reduction than a build that focuses control. So the first test goes to stability. The second test was just flat out spraying, and again, that was with non-moving targets. And I actually felt that stability was more enjoyable for some reason than control. That was just my personal feel. And then with test number 3 was the spray transfer, and I actually preferred control for that one because a simpler recoil pattern is going to be easier to snap or spray transfer to another target. Since it's a less complex pattern, you essentially just pull straight down and you're perfect, you know? So transferring to another target is real easy when you focus control. So overall, I think it's important to get a feeling and understanding for what the two attributes do, but I do think it is a real case-by-case scenario with what build are you using, how skilled are you, because I think more skilled players can actually benefit from builds that have high stability. And if you're maybe newer to FPS where recoil patterns are difficult for you, then you may really benefit from high control builds, and it makes that compensation a lot easier. As well as if you play warfare or operations. If you play a lot of operations, a high stability weapon might come in handy, especially with minimal idle sway. Different play styles in the two different modes, so a lot of angle holding and waiting for people to peek in operations. The less idle sway you have, that's real handy. Whereas in warfare, a lot of time you're running around and then you ADS and then you run around more and you ADS, so a lot less angle holding, but there still is a lot of angle holding in warfare, don't get me wrong. Overall, I think it's up for you guys to determine what's best for you. So go ahead and try these builds out. They're in the description, and get a better understanding of stability and control. What's the difference? How does it feel? How does it perform? Let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions, and if you enjoy videos like this, let me know what you want to see me break down next. 2 different stats, comparing guns, things like that. Drop it in the comments, and thanks for watching, guys. Have a good rest of your day.